Only on CBS this morning, we have an in-studio look at the last privately owned painting by Leonardo da Vinci. The portrait is called Salvator Mundi, which means Savior of the World in Latin. It was created about 500 years ago and was thought to have been destroyed.
The painting was long mistaken for a copy of the artist's work because it was heavily painted over. Its restoration makes it one of about 15 known surviving paintings by the renowned artist.
And there's more. Christie's Auction House is selling this painting this month in New York City. It's expected to go for, listen to this, $100 million. Bidding, they say, will start at $70 million. Alan Wintermute is Christie's senior specialist for old master paintings. He joins us now with Salvator Mundi. Good morning, Alan.
Good morning.
Sort of nerve-wracking standing here because you don't accidentally hit it. But it's considered the Holy Grail because?
Well, it was long known to have existed, but it was known through copies, and there are drawings for it by Leonardo in Windsor Castle. But it had been completely obscured by paint, as you said, and it was sort of hidden in public view. I mean, it was in private collections, but you couldn't see really almost any of the surface, and it was thought to have been lost.
Any serious questions about its authenticity?
None, really. It was, as I said, almost completely overpainted, but once that was removed after its rediscovery, the quality of it became very evident, and really there hasn't been any real question about it.
Leonardo didn't finish many paintings, did he?
No, he finished very few. He was not prolific, and he was exploratory and a perfectionist, and he often gave up what he had started. So there are only about a dozen paintings that are finished.
Why is it called the male Mona Lisa?
Well, it's painted around the same time as Mona Lisa. It's painted around 1500, and his technique is such that he paints these things over a long period of time. So this and the painting of Mona Lisa probably overlap.
Well, you do
but he has that, absolutely, absolutely.
Smile.
I mean, there's the enigmatic smile. There's the soft, smoky, sort of shadowing in the face. All of that is very characteristic of what you find in Mona Lisa as well.
Do you already have interest in this painting?
We do.
Yes,
we do. We're
people
working
have to
very
sign
hard.
a financial release form that they can afford this painting. How do you know?
Well, we do a little investigation before
So you do
people
have
bid.
Can you tell us where the painting has been held by a private family? Has it been hanging?
It's owned by a European private collector. It emerged in 2005. It was found and cleaned by dealers who then subsequently sold it, and so it's changed hands. But it's owned by a European private collector. Well, we kind of went to them and convinced them that this was a good moment. It's a picture that, to be honest, we were looking at and trying to think of ways to get to for a long time because it's such a great.
Best guess it'll go for more than $100 million.
Well, that is certainly my hope, and yes, I would guess it will.
Who are the people that have expressed interest? And by that, do I mean Oprah Winfrey? She's a big art collector.
Well, we'd like her to come look at it.
Yeah.
Significant art collectors, people who have an interest in Leonardo. There have been a variety.
Do you think it'll be in the United States? How about that?
Well, it absolutely could be, but really anyone can bid and it can go anywhere ultimately. But there is only one Leonardo painting in the United States in the National Gallery in Washington. Everything else is in Europe, so it would be terrific if it stayed here.
Does it make you tingly, Alan, looking at it?
I have to say it does. It is really exciting. I've seen it for a few years now, and every time I see it, it has tremendous presence and power.
Well, we can split it up, maybe.
I agree.
Thank you.
Crown Prince is the mysterious buyer of a rare Leonardo da Vinci painting, the Salvator Mundi painting set in our studio before it was sold at auction. We love having this video for a record $450 million. It was a very special day, I have to say, when it was here in the studio in the corner. The Wall Street Journal reports that Prince Mohammed bin Salman used a proxy to buy the masterpiece. While Holly Williams has just returned from Saudi Arabia, she's with us in Istanbul with more on how this purchase could reflect the prince's vision for the kingdom. Holly, good morning.
Good morning. Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman is known as a fan of the arts and as a reformer. But this reported purchase, which we cannot independently confirm, comes as he also leads a corruption crackdown on Saudi Arabia's wealthy elite. Crown Prince Mohammed is King Salman's anointed successor in his oil-rich Islamic kingdom. The reported purchase of a painting for nearly $500 million might not look good in the midst of leading a corruption crackdown, though there's no suggestion the money was ill-gotten. It's pocket change compared to the staggering misuse of public funds revealed by Economy Minister Mohammed Al Tuwaijeri.
$20 billion a year.
$20 billion a year has been lost to corruption.
It's negligence, it's overspending.
Al-Tuwaijeri took over as minister after the last one was reportedly detained for corruption last month. One of more than 300 rounded up for questioning, some held in a luxury hotel, apparently including several members of the Saudi royal family. Critics say that what the Crown Prince is doing with this corruption crackdown is sidelining or silencing his rivals
Does he
and
need
detractors.
that? Do you think he needs that? He's the most popular leader we come across, in our history.
That might be true, but criticising the Crown Prince would be downright dangerous.
I went to Wales.
It's only in London that Saudi dissident Hanem al-Dosari dares to make videos satirising the Saudi government.
Mohammed bin Salman.
He says Saudi corruption is much bigger than the current clampdown.
Speaking up your mind, this is a crime in Saudi Arabia. People has disappeared and been charged for tweets.
Those detained in this corruption crackdown will be forced to hand over part of their fortunes. It's thought those payments could total up to $100 billion. Biana?
Yeah, the timing of that purchase does raise eyebrows, though, when the talk is about transparency and corruption. But I think it's time for us to take a trip to the Louvre, if that's where it's going
I'd
to
like
end up.
that.
Yeah, how about that? Ryan, REP, what do you think?
To the Louvre in Abu Dhabi.
He's in Abu Dhabi, that's right.
Ryan said me no speaking English.
Biana who? Right.
Very expensive.
Holly Williams, our thanks to you.
Check out these two Saudi princes. This one's the 57-year-old crown prince. And this one, the one doing all the hand kissing, is his younger cousin. Listen to what the older cousin is saying. He's being forced to give up his power and to pass the crown prince title to his younger cousin, a guy who's almost half his age. This is Mohammed bin Salman. In the West, we just call him MBS. And since this moment in June, he's consolidated power so swiftly and so thoroughly that in Saudi Arabia, they just know him as Mr. Everything. As Crown Prince, MBS will become king. And with all of this new power, MBS is seeking to assert his dominance throughout the Middle East. One of his big policies has been a vehement opposition to Saudi Arabia's neighbor, Iran. And on that note, he has found an ally in the White House. Inside the kingdom, MBS is also seeking to cement his authority and dominance over the royal family.
Saudi Arabia's young crown prince arresting hundreds of his own cousins and
Crackdown on corruption. 11 princes and nearly 40 current or former officials detained, reportedly being held at the lavish Ritz-Carlton.
Yes, if you're a Saudi prince, jail is the Ritz-Carlton. MBS called this a corruption crackdown, and he branded himself as the financially responsible anti-corruption leader. But we're talking about a guy who recently purchased one of the most expensive homes in the world, and who last year spent $500 million on a painting. He clearly had other motives for this crackdown beyond fiscal responsibility. One thing to realize is that the Saudi royal family is made up of thousands of members who use public money generated from oil revenues to fund their unthinkably excessive lifestyles. So it wouldn't be hard for MBS to crack down on anyone he wants to. Coming into power, MBS's second big move was to loosen the strict moral and social rules of the kingdom. He stripped the religious police of their right to make arrests. He expanded women's rights in society, including giving them the right to drive. On the surface, these are progressive social reforms meant to modernize Saudi society. But like the anti-corruption crackdowns, the move is another effort to seize power. Saudi society is built on a sort of pact between the royal family, which is called the House of Saud, and the vast religious establishment run by conservative Islamic clerics. The clerics give the Saud family legitimacy by giving them their blessing as rulers of the kingdom. In exchange, the family allows the clerics to strictly enforce their uncompromising, puritanical version of Islam within the kingdom. This Faustian bargain means that Saudi princes, like MBS and others, can live these indulgent lifestyles and make deals with the West, but still retain religious legitimacy in the eyes of the public. It's a balance that has kept the kingdom stable in this very volatile region. But now MBS has violated his family's part of the bargain. arresting hardline clerics who might speak out against his progressive reforms. This could shake one of the foundational pillars of Saudi society. The third way MBS is shaking up the kingdom is his plans for the economy. The kingdom's revenue comes almost entirely from oil. Demand for oil has remained solid for decades, and Saudi has reaped the rewards of that. But in 2014, the price of oil started to drop, and it became clear that betting the entire kingdom's economy on this one resource was a dangerous strategy for the future. So MBS wants to end what he calls this oil addiction in order to prepare for a world after oil. He's laid out a vision for privatizing a lot of the sectors within the Saudi economy and breaking up this giant government-owned oil business. But this reform could also create more instability. Thanks to the endless oil money, Saudi citizens are entitled to a lifelong set of benefits like free healthcare and subsidized housing. But as MBS tries to privatize the economy and move away from oil, this subsidized lifestyle that so many Saudis enjoy could be threatened. And the public support that has kept this monarchy so solid for so many years could begin to dwindle. The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is on the brink of one of the biggest transformations in its history. As this young leader consolidates power to upend the status quo, he may also upend the pillars that have kept the kingdom one of the most stable countries in the Middle East.
A Wall Street Journal report says Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman is the actual buyer of a Leonardo da Vinci painting that sold for a record-breaking $450 million at an auction last month. Salman supposedly used an intermediary to buy Salvator Mundi.
Rumors are swirling that a historic secret meeting has just gone down in Israel between the Israeli government and the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia.
A visit like this from Saudi royalty is obviously a big deal, considering the two countries have no official relations. Though Saudi Arabia has never actively been involved in any previous wars against Israel, the country has heavily aligned itself with the Palestinians and has actively pushed for Israel's withdrawal from the West Bank. The rumors have ignited harsh criticism from the Arab world, who have condemned the Saudis for allegedly meeting with Prime Minister Netanyahu himself and discussing security ties between the two countries. While there have always been rumors of secret ties between Israel and Saudi Arabia for isolated economic and military operations, a visit from the crowned prince on Israeli soil would mean a significant upgrade is already underway.
Struggle against Iran, you have made some unlikely allies. There is a kind of a tacit alliance between the major, what are called the moderate Arab states, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, and others with Israel. Is that an awkward situation to be in, given that Saudi Arabia is an Islamic state? It practices many of the forms of Islam that people regard as highly puritanical, quasi-medieval, even medieval. They chop people's heads off, they chop hands off, they have laws about blasphemy and apostasy, not a lot of churches in Saudi Arabia, certainly no synagogues. How comfortable are you with that tacit alliance?
I see the world as it is, not as I'd like it to be only, or not as we remember it nostalgically, and I work from that premise. I think Saudi Arabia recognizes today that it needs a path to reform as well, and they see, as do many in the Arab world, that they see Israel as an ally rather than as an enemy because of the two principal threats that threaten them. First is Iran, and the second is Daesh. If you're closer to the Persian Gulf, Iran comes first. If you move to North Africa, to Egypt, Daesh comes first. But there's always the second. And so when they look around and they say, well, who can help us in this battle that threatens our very future? Obviously, Israel and these Sunni Arab states are not on opposite sides, and that's natural. That, I think, tells you there's a bigger story. I said this yesterday. I went to with my wife to a dinner, the opening dinner here, and I met some of our European friends, including members of the EU. And I said, look, I have one request, that the EU policy shaped in Brussels, not the individual European countries, but the EU policy vis-a-vis Israel and the Palestinians merely reflect now the prevailing Arab policy to Israel and the Palestinians. There is a great shift taking place, and it might be. We used to think that if we solve the Palestinian-Israeli conflict, it would solve the larger Israeli-Arab conflict. The more I look at it, the more I think it may be the other way around.
Also during that day, Saad al-Hariri signed the assignment of a new Lebanese ambassador to Syria. That was a shocker for me, I'll be very honest with you, because he was very vocal about not doing that, but he then ended up doing it. So just after that, and I'm not saying it's linked, I'm just saying what happened. After that, he was summoned directly back to Saudi Arabia. That is 24 hours after he returned to Lebanon. He was summoned with a degree of urgency. So he left Lebanon urgently, and he only was allowed to have a few number, which are counted on one hand, of bodyguards. That's how urgent that was. So he left Lebanon. I am pretty sure he had no idea what he was going or putting himself into, but he left on the matter of urgency. And on Saturday, approximately midday, we started hearing about breaking news saying that Saad al-Hariri, the Prime Minister of Lebanon, has resigned in a recorded video from Saudi Arabia on the the official channel of Al Saud, which is Al Arabiya channel. At first we thought it was a joke, to be honest, because we were shocked, because there was no evidence that something was wrong with the government. There was no evidence, whether from him or from his rivals for that matter, that there was something going on politically speaking inside of Lebanon that would hint to a resignation. Not at all, and we will talk about that as well. But what happened after that is what's much more interesting. The resignation of Saad al-Hariri was I remember very well, because I was prepared to go out and my day was wrecked because I had to go to work, back to work. So it was a Saturday, it was around 1 p.m. Beirut time, and we heard that, and just 2 hours later, breaking news about the arrest and the detention of 11 very important princes and more than 20 senior figures that were arrested by Mohammed bin Salman, on the orders of Mohammed bin Salman. And later on, an hour later, it was broadcasted, or it was announced that, of course, via Twitter. All of this is via Twitter, because we cannot get anything from any media channel. So via Twitter, it was announced that the Ritz-Carlton is actually the new prison. And we knew that only because of the memo that was sent out by the Ritz-Carlton to the actual guests there, asking them politely to leave. So there we go. So and the memo said that it was a matter of national security and an urgent matter by the government, that we need you, we ask of you to leave. So we're talking about a 5 or maybe 7-class star hotel that is very, very luxurious, that actually hosted the Donald Trump summit that happened, I think it was 2 months or so ago, but it was midsummer. And so it's that, and it's the same hotel. We'll talk about that too. It's the same hotel that Mohammed bin Salman had hosted the convention about the technology. We all heard about Sophia, the robot who was given the Saudi nationality.
Here is the Saudi Arabian robot. Notice she doesn't have to wear a veil. The corrupt Saudi Arabian barons, with their harems and the rest of it, sitting laughing, going, look, we build a female like we are God, and she does what we say, and we say she's a citizen now, and they buy it. Funny. Let's go back. Of course it's in our image, stealing our image, as usual. Let's go back to it. Stop. This is beyond cultural appropriation. It's the enemy, and that's why I want to launch a worldwide movement of a symbol with a human with a club smashing a robot's head in. Because they are the programmed armies of the globalists. They are the enemy. That is the abomination. That is the Antichrist right there. Excuse me. Let's go back to it. Let's go back to it. Here we go.
Just go back to Blade.
Because parasites always hate the host. Well, I got news for you, scumbags. You're losing on every front, and it's beautiful. You pushed too hard, and the wheels came off. You're done. Stay with us.
Technology, we all heard about Sophia, the robot who was given the Saudi nationality, and we heard about the new city, the new intelligent city that bin Salman wants to build, which is NEOM. That it was hosted just days before in that hotel, in the Ritz-Carlton. And we started linking the manner that bin Salman was able to arrest all of these princes at once, meaning that they were in the country all together because of that convention. He did that convention to bring all the local and international and regional investors into the country to come watch what the new investments in Saudi Arabia for his 2030 plan is for this new NEOM city, smart city, which, by the way, Al-Walid bin Talal refused to invest in, which is also a big question mark. Why would he refuse? So that happened. 2 days later, everybody goes back to the Ritz-Carlton, but as detainees, which is shocking. Now, after that, we started hearing about deaths, but fire, exchange of fire. We had Fahd bin Abdullah dying. When Fahd bin Abdullah, I'd like to remind everyone, because I'm saying a lot of names and it might be a bit complicated for people who don't know about the royal family. I still sometimes confuse them. But the thing is, we know very much Fahd bin Abdullah because he is Saad al-Hariri's best friend since they were very young. They used to go to the pubs together. They used to go to everywhere around the world with the yacht and, the luxurious lives of the prince. He was there with him. And every investment that Saad al-Hariri has made, Fahd bin Abdullah was part of that investment. So Fahd bin Abdullah was about to get detained, and there was an exchange of fire at the entrance of his gate at the palace where he got shot. He went to the hospital. 2 days later, he's dead. He's announced dead. There you go. And then later on, you have the helicopter that was downed at the border area between Saudi Arabia and Yemen, which had on it a prince and several other ministerial and senior figures in the area of Asir. And the area of Asir is the area bordering Yemen. It's on the southern part of Saudi Arabia. A downing of a plane. Exact next day, which was yesterday, Haaretz issues a huge report. Israeli Haaretz newspaper issues a huge report and says it was Saudi war jets that downed that helicopter because that prince was trying to flee the country. So if that's not a purge, I don't know what we can call it. These princes were offered to close all their corruption files in return for their full allegiance to Mohammed bin Salman becoming the crown, the king of Saudi Arabia, and they all refused, especially Mit'ab, Walid bin Talal, and the third one who I can't get to memorize his name because it's too long. So these three main princes refused, the others are refusing, the senior figures, businessmen and officials refusing, and because of that, a new wave of arresting and detentions have taken place over the past few hours.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Heads Not the Tails. And I've been meaning to make this video for a minute now, because I'm not done with this picture here. And if you look at the symbolism just on the frame alone, it's very Babylonian Ishtar-ish, you know what I mean? Ishtar is also where they get the name Easter from. Plenty of sun symbolism, meaning that they worship the sun, and not the Son of God, but the sun itself. I've been taking a very deep look at this painting here, and besides the obvious I come to find there's a lot more to this picture. Now, when I say they're worshiping the sun, it also means that they're worshiping Satan. You know, this is all Freemason stuff going on here, Illuminati, and it's, you know, obviously Da Vinci was a Satanist or something, you know, yet painted this blasphemous picture of our Lord Jesus Christ. And you know, we know that Jesus is not white. So this is...
Maybe I was born and brought up in Saudi Arabia. In Saudi Arabia, Christianity is banned. Only Islam is allowed to be practiced in Saudi Arabia. No other religions are allowed. It is a tough place to be a Christian. And without the secret church that I was involved in Saudi Arabia, I would not be a Christian here or talking to you now. So we have secret churches there, house churches, and we have a room which we dedicate for these church services. As a Christian, we need the power of the Holy Spirit and that immense faith in God to continue that journey. And let me tell you, without God, it would have been impossible to worship Him and to come together as Christians in Saudi Arabia. God TV and Christian television has been really, really effective in Saudi Arabia since the early 2000s. This is because in a persecuted country, we don't have much information about the wider Christian world because of the nature of our community and because of persecution in Saudi Arabia. And so when God TV came, it really encouraged us and it uplifted us and strengthened our faith because we were able to know what was going among our brothers and sisters around the world.
You don't have to do anything other than say, Daddy, here I am, and allow Him to show you just how passionately He loves you.
And we were really thrilled to see thousands and thousands of people coming to Christ in many parts of the world. And that really encouraged us and really uplifted us and really motivated us to work for God more and more and to preach the gospel. People like Reinhard Bonnke, I watched their crusades in Africa, has been really encouraging to me. And it's because of people like him that I made a decision to work for Christ and do nothing else.
The name of Jesus, de naam van Jezus, be exalted, wees verhoogd over the Muslim nation, over the Muslim nation, over the Islam, Jesus, Jesus, Son of God.
In Saudi Arabia, traditional evangelistic methods are impossible. For example, you cannot go outside into a street and distribute tracts or go and tell about Jesus to a random stranger in the street. Because if you do that, you'd get into big trouble. One of the most effective evangelistic method is through the television. God TV has played a huge role in that. Because many people have no other way of knowing about Jesus. I would encourage people to pray for the persecuted church in Saudi Arabia and around the world, especially by praying that their faith will stay strong no matter what happens in their life. It is important that people support God TV in any way they can, and so that through that God TV can uplift the name of Jesus, not only in countries that are free, but in countries that there is no other way for people to hear about Jesus.